Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Edina. I'm Sam Thompson and I'm proud to be your 66th president. We are coming to you live from the Edina Country Club and also via Zoom. We have 40 people with us today live that have pre-registered and 28 Zoom. So welcome Zoom. And a special guest today, our mayor, Jim Hovland, is here. So nice to have Jim here. We've been living with COVID for about 6 months now, and we all can agree we're ready for this to be over. Let's get back to what we knew as normal. Yet through all this discomfort and unpleasant changes in our lifestyles, there are a few positive outcomes that we've seen. So even though we've been social distancing, we've been closer in other ways, especially with people that are most important to us. I live in downtown Minneapolis with my wife Kim and my daughter Lee, who's 23, and pre-COVID we would work out in our workout room in our condo. Well, that has changed because our workout room now has been closed. So our workouts now are in the morning. We do the Mississippi River over the Stone Arch and the Hennepin Avenue and back. And that's about 3 miles, and that's about what we would do on the treadmill. And the time together has really been refreshing. And we've been able to catch up on our conversations. And it's just nice to be closer with our family. I've talked to many of you, and it sounds like you have similar stories. Granted, staying home for an extended period of time with your family sometimes can be challenging, but many will agree that during COVID, we've been closer to those that are most important. And besides my family, my Rotary family is very important too. And during COVID, we have created the opportunity to reach out to all of our members, to get to know each other better. And as a result, Jean Morrison started Helping Hands. She was up at the podium last week and had Helping Hands, which is a group of Edina Rotary members that are reaching out to our members to see how you're doing, to see if you need groceries or prescriptions. Maybe you've had issues with your business or been let go at work, somebody that you just want to talk to. So it really has been a great initiative from Jean. And another initiative that we're going to be starting this month, which is the brainchild of Youth Services Director David Ossie, would be our new podcast series. And Jennifer Hendrickson is actually Public Image Director. Jennifer is actually running with this. So we're really excited for Jennifer sitting over there. And the podcast, really, it's nothing more than taped interviews with our members. Think of it as a membership classification talk on steroids. So instead of a 5-minute presentation, you're going to get a 20 to 30-minute conversation with one of our members that'll be telling you personal stories and why Rotary is so important to them. And we're going to have that available on our website and also through iTunes. Pardon me?
If they accept it.
If they accept it. We're still working on that. They'll accept us. Come on. So anyway, we plan to roll this out late September. And our first member will be our first female member, Chrisanne Manolis. We plan to do these monthly. And it's just another way to get closer to our members. And I want to thank David Ossie and Jennifer Hendrickson for their work on our new podcast. And we are social distancing, yet emotionally, we're that much closer. Okay, member update. We got a few member updates. Bonnie Rolstad, it's your 20th anniversary of WEBWOC, which is her company. It's a premier online nursing education program. And the photo here shows the founding partners. And Bonnie gave me a quote. It's a little long, but it's really powerful. So I wanted to give it to you. And Bonnie says, "Beware of the risk takers, the disruptors. They frequently are mission and values-driven individuals. Their lens is not the same as others. They may not fit into traditional organizational structures as they envision unique solutions. They perpetuate innovation to break down barriers for others." So congratulations, Bonnie. And Kaylin Eidsness is changing jobs. Actually, that is Kaylin in the photo there with the Adams family. She's the third from the right. She's yesterday Adams in the photo. She left the city of Edina. She'd been there for 12 years, so a big loss for the city. On August 21st, she left. But the good news is she's working for Susan Stiles, and which is another one of our members. Susan has a financial firm. And Kaylin will be marketing and communications. That'll be her position. And I want to thank Kaylin for the great work she's done on our gala. She's put together our logo, and she's done the invites and the programs and some of the signage. So she's done just a super job on that. And hey Kaylin, I don't know if she's here. She may be on Zoom. And her quote, she said, on changing jobs in the middle of the pandemic, from Nelson Mandela, is may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And then one last member update. I've heard about this morning, and so I want to make sure I give it enough time. So I'm going to be talking about it next week in the member update. But I do want to mention Heather Hansen. I know Heather is here because she was a greeter. Where are you, Heather? Yes, her son, Charles, caught a northern pike, 41 inches, Lake Harriet. Unbelievable. And Carol Levin did a story on it. So we'll have more on this next week. Okay. And then Rotary in the news. George Floyd Memorial Rotary Scholarship was announced this last week. It's Gabrielle Bell. She goes by Gabby. And she went to Highland Park Senior High School, GPA of 3.5. She's going to be going to the U of M for a 4-year scholarship as a first-generation college student. She plans to pursue human biology, and our club donated along with 6 other clubs in the district, and the district was part of this too. And then one last thing I want to mention, the One Rotary Summit, which is a training by our district, is on September 19th. It's open to everybody. It's really a great training program. So please go to the Rotary District site. It's 5950.org and sign up for that. Okay, we have some birthdays. We have 5 birthdays this next week. Happy birthday, everybody. And Rotary anniversaries. We got a couple of anniversaries, so that's great. And assisting off podium. Greeter is Heather Hansen. The Zoom greeter is Jim Platt. Front desk is Jody Kern helping Becky. And then the photographer is Jennifer Hendrickson. And finally, make sure that you're wearing your mask after you're eating for the safety of other members. Thank you so much. And now Don Hutchison is going to take the place of Dennis. We did have a change, no fault of Dennis, but we're going to have Don do the invocation pledge in the 4-way test.
Please rise and bow your heads. Let us pray. Let us offer thanks for our food and blessings for one another. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us give gratitude for our opportunity to serve Rotary. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then the 4-way test. First, is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Play ball.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've got quite a few guests here today, so we'll start off with Dimitri Anohen. Go ahead and stand up. This is his second time with us. He's in pharmaceutical sales, and he's very interested in joining our club. Welcome, Dimitri. Then, of course, we've got Mayor Jim Hovland. Go ahead and stand up, Mayor. Well, there we go. We'll just move on. Welcome, Mayor. And then we have Lori Severson joining us today, the president of the Edina Chamber. Welcome. And then Rob has a guest, Jennifer, joining us today.
Can I introduce Jennifer?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is Jenny Henderson Page, right? How are you? And she's the executive director for Hope International locally here. I'd actually like her to tell you what it is. But I joined the board almost a year ago now, and Jenny's been leading me there. And would you mind to stand up and tell her about Hope, just brief?
Great, thanks so much. Great to be with you all. So Hope International is an organization that does Christ-centered microfinance in 16 countries around the world. And especially right now, it's an important time to remember people in other countries as well that are trying to rebuild their businesses. So glad to be with you all today. Thanks so much.
Great. Welcome. And then we have from the Hope Academy, we have Jamie and Julia joining us, and we'll learn more about them later, but welcome, and we'll meet them both later on with Doug Johnson. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Doug Johnson. I'm a member of the Local Grants Committee, and for the next few weeks, I think we'll be introducing some of our recipients of our local grants. If you really want to have a good time, these are some of the most fun meetings that I go to in the entire year, and believe me, we go to a lot of meetings. This is a great group to work with. We take the money from the Gala, and then we have applicants that send in their information and their requests, and we really vet those. I mean, it's a lot. So the money from the Gala that the board allocates to this local grants committee, we also have international grants as well. It goes through that committee. So a big thanks to Kelly Burnett, who's the chair of that committee. Our past chair is here. Hi, Paul. Paul Peterson does a great job, so it's really a lot of fun. Before I introduce Hope Academy, I want to recognize our newly elected mayor, unless he has a terrible write-in campaign. Everybody was afraid to run against Jim, so he is actually going to be the continuing mayor. He was up for election this fall. So Jim, congratulations on that.
The co-chair, he's the one who put me over the
Yeah, the other one was the one that actually did something was John Barnett.
in front of the door at City Hall and wouldn't let anybody in.
So it's great. So congratulations, Jim. And a lot has happened in the last few months, and I want to tell you, the epicenter of Minneapolis is the organization I'm going to introduce. When we gave out the grant, we had no idea what was going to be happening. This was last January, February, whatever. And they literally are in the middle, the epicenter of Minneapolis for the protests, the riots, everything. This is, with the Salvation Army, my favorite charity. So it was really fun to have them apply on the local grants committee. So I'm going to introduce Jamie. You can take your mask off now, Jamie. And she's going to share a little bit about what they did with the grant and potentially how you can become involved with them. So Jamie, I'm going to leave it up to you.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for having us today. I'm Jamie Olson, and my colleague Julia Madigan is here as well. And I want to tell you briefly how your generosity as a club is making a difference for children in Minneapolis, and specifically children at Hope Academy. So, like Doug mentioned, Hope Academy is on Chicago Avenue and Franklin Avenue, which is kind of a notorious street corner, and just 15 blocks from where George Floyd was murdered, and 7 blocks from the epicenter of a lot of the rioting that took place. So our neighborhood has really felt things and really been shaken. Yeah, I'd say our community has been devastated both emotionally and physically from all of this. And then something that's a little bit less well known is just the crazy spike in violence that's been taking place in our Minneapolis neighborhoods since. So I was just talking to a lady at the park yesterday, and she was just talking about how fearful she's felt this summer, and parents just not even wanting their kids to play outside because it's been that bad. So if you're like me, you might be feeling overwhelmed by all the inequities and things that have really been highlighted this summer. It's housing and homelessness, to the disproportionate impact of COVID on communities of color and of poverty, to joblessness and poverty and more. But what is at the heart of so many of these things is education. And education really is such a root issue that's causing a lot of these injustices. So with Minnesota consistently being at the bottom of the nation, having one of the biggest achievement gaps between white students and students of color, we believe that addressing the education of inner city youth, of children of color, is one of the most important things that we can do together today. So Hope Academy was started 20 years ago to provide low-income children of color in Minneapolis with a remarkable, God-centered education. And we wanted to give kids in our neighborhood not just a mediocre education, but one that's really excellent, that you would want for your own kids, that's rooted in character and faith and virtue and planted in a loving community. So we started with just 35 kids in 2000 and have grown to serve 540 K through 12 today. And that's with the help of our partners like you, who together cover 90% of the cost of a Hope Academy education. We're a private school, so donors pay for 90, parents pay for 10. I would like to play a quick video to introduce you to a few of the students at Hope Academy.
A school. Can a school?
A school where kids can go and learn and have fun.
A school where we learn about God. School is kind of important to me because, like, I really want to learn stuff. Because you learn about God. Because you get to learn how to read. Because the worshiping God. For forgiveness. You love me. How is he Jesus and God at the same time? Why would you save me after all those sins I've done? A new chalkboard. A big surprise. I would give her a day off. I would try to give her a day off. An art teacher or a gym teacher? A firefighter. Police. I want to be an astronaut.
So part of what makes Hope Academy unique is we have sort of a 10-month school year. We have 4 weeks of mandatory summer school in June into July. And that's to help our students combat summer learning loss and have more opportunities to grow and to thrive and to be safe. So this year, the Rotary Club of Edina helped us provide summer resource bags to all of our students. So we were still able to do a version of summer school. So you helped us provide books and flashcards and math games and supplies for baking and woodworking and cooking classes and other fun electives that students were able to do throughout the month of July, which is really a critical time to be having positive things to be doing. So with your support of this program, our students of color this past school year scored proficient in reading at nearly the exact same level as white students statewide. So together we really are closing the achievement gap. At Hope Academy, we've had a 96% graduation rate for all of our classes and millions of dollars in college scholarships that students have been awarded. Even better, we're getting to see our graduates come back and tutor, mentor, volunteer, and even give back financially to our school and to our community. So yesterday we launched our 21st school year. It was the weirdest first day of school ever, but a really warm welcome and so great to have kids back at school. We're providing both online and in-person learning options, and just really grateful to be able to be together in this time. So I'd love to share more with you. We'll be around afterwards, Julie and I, but really just want to thank you for taking the time to learn about Hope and to share your resources with our students this school year. So thanks so much.
take the chair. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm going to cover a couple announcements here. We have the car show that is coming up September 12th at Southdale, so you can come free, show up, no charge for that. If you want to register a car, just go on our website. I'm going to cover for Bridget. Rotary Chamber Mixer is next week. It's on September 9th, next week, at Pinstripes. So would love to see our membership show up for that. It should be a great event. And Human Trafficking, that is on September 17th, and it's our joint meeting. It'll be here with the Morning Club, and we already have 25 people signed up, so if you're interested, you can go on to our website and sign up now, but we do expect we will sell out. There will be plenty of space on Zoom. And the Walk to End Alzheimer's is September 26th. We'll be meeting at Centennial Lakes Pavilion, so that should be a great day to walk around Centennial Lakes and for a really good cause. And the Gala, September 26th and October 3rd. The raffle tickets just should be coming out to you now, and we just sent out the hard copy invites. We did a early registration online, had a great turnout. A lot of these homes are selling out. A lot of the hosts are selling out. So we highly recommend, if you want to go to the Gala, to sign up right away. You have until next Friday to sign up. And we just want to thank our hosts again for hosting. And we want to show the fourth of 4 videos that we're promoting our hosts. And promoted by the B-52s. So here we go. And our mayor is actually hosting France, too. So thank you very much, Mayor. Okay, I'd like to now bring up Hannelore, who will be introducing our speaker. Hannelore Brucker graduated in medicine from the Eberhard Karls University of Tübingen, founded in 1477. She worked for 32 years in her Edina private allergy office and raised 4 children. After giving the office to her colleagues, she continued research as scientific fellow of the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. In July of 2016, she joined the Edina Rotary Noon Club. She supported many Rotary programs. After being a member of the local grants committee, she now concentrates on the Community Services Projects Committee, hoping to create programs for the elderly using her love for music. Highlights were district and leadership meetings and the attendance of the International Rotary meeting in 2019 in Hamburg. She hopes to take part in an international medical mission. Please welcome up Hannelore.
Hello, everybody. We are happy to have as speaker today Mr. Michael Wright. He is known for leadership roles for enterprises for focusing on leading-edge semiconductor equipment and materials, software, instrumentation, fluid flow, and filtration products. He actually has 2 patents on microfluids. He excelled in any position he ever held. An early success he had as Senior Vice President for Geophysical Corporation of America. When this company was acquired by General Signal, he was chosen to represent its semiconductor equipment portfolio of 22 companies at the Competitive Analysis Group, CAG. In 1992, he founded the company Wright, William Kelly, WWK, a software company for cost modeling, enterprise decision-making, and strategic marketing firm that was for semiconductors, solar, and medical manufacturing. In 1996, he led the sale of his company into CH2M Hill. I know what this means, but I won't say it. And this became a very successful company. Michael Wright's main goal is to connect technology with business. He proves his lifelong learning by being a graduate at the US Navy Nuclear Power Program, which at the time he told me was 3 years, and brought him all over Asia. He also studied at the Kellogg School of Management and at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He serves on numerous technology programs and nonprofit programs promoting interdisciplinary training and international joint ventures such as Precision Taiwan. Besides all his accomplishments, Michael Wright is still active in advising companies and giving courses at the Carlson School of Management. Please welcome Michael Wright.
Thank you, hon. We're going to talk a little bit about the exponential era. And first thing you have to do is talk about exponential. And exponential is a mathematical term, but we use it almost as a verb now. It's got exponential growth, exponential change. But exponential is really about how things change and how they change quickly, how they change at scale and at speed. Now there's, three kinds of people in the world: those that understand math and those that don't. Tells me you're awake. So, by way of background, you heard the introduction, but basically it's your bias. It's how you look at the world. So my mindset comes from basically 30 years of leading technology companies and having just about every role that there is in an organization, from carrying the flyers and making the sales calls to being on boards and all that type of thing. And what it does is give you a perspective, and Hannah, thanks for bringing out the lifelong learning piece. I think if you're not a lifelong learner, life gets very boring. And part of that is being able to connect the dots in new ways and seeing how things change and how they change quickly and what you might do to improve the outcomes. So that's my bias. It's in multiple industries and across, obviously, small startups to multi-billion-dollar market cap publicly traded companies. We have a strategic framework that's developing all around the globe. And part of that is we live in a world where the useful assets, the life of assets is unpredictable. The workforce skills require continual renewal, and markets can disappear overnight. And we've certainly had that experience with COVID. I don't think I'd want to be a landlord in a downtown community or own the paper on a restaurant. So those are things that happen. And this is really what we saw back in 2005 in my first book that I wrote, The New Business Normal. And that came about as a result of a trip through China, where I saw that they weren't going to put up telephone poles in order to have telecommunications. They had cell phones. And they jumped right to it. And they also adopted technology very quickly, and we're seeing the result now. So the difference between an opportunity and a threat is the time horizon in which you see it. If you see it far enough out, you can put up a toll booth. If you see it too close, you better get out of the way. And so part of the exponential era and part of what we're trying to do is look at how things change quickly and how do you stay ahead of the curve. So an overview. We're in an exponential era. Things move quickly and they move suddenly. What we do is we have today an agrarian-based planning methods that no longer work, and I'll go into that a little bit. We've developed a new method for strategic planning because one's needed. It's needed now. And we're in an exponential era that requires finding new ways to develop and execute strategies that are able to keep pace with accelerating change and stay ahead of the curve. One of the things that's challenging everyone is how do you react quickly and smartly to things? And you can look around the world just with COVID and you look at the reactions, those that were prepared, that had the experience, that put things in place early on, like Taiwan, virtually no cases. If you don't act fast, the exponential curve gets ahead of you, and then you have to deal with the consequences. And it's deceptive in nature. So there's the opportunity for that. I'm changing on mine, not on this one. The overview. Here's the deceptive nature of it. An exponential scramble is what takes place. And you saw that, again, just using COVID as an example, where people just scramble to come up with things to do to head off or flatten the curve or whatever you want to call it. And that's our outlook. That's part of it. It's how we see things from a mental perspective. Is our hope is always extension of whatever the line is, right? When the economy's good, it's going to go up good forever. When it's bad, it's going to be, into the abyss.
Michael, could you just get a little bit closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
You bet. So it basically says that hope, when you look at hope, it's linear. When you look at, how we do things going forward, in an exponential area, you're always scrambling. And you're always scrambling because you're behind the curve. So here's an example, and hopefully it'll play, of if you had the number of brain cycles per second, or let's say it another way. Let me start this on over. I don't think I can start over. If you look at this, we're going to fill this lake. This is Lake Michigan, with the volume is about the same as the brain's capacity. In other words, in calculations per second. We're going to start the beginning of this, and we're going to see. Let's see if it does it. Didn't do it. Well, anyway, you saw it before, so let me. There it's going. Okay. So watch what happens towards the end. It goes and goes and goes, and then all of a sudden, the last 4 or 5 years, there it is. So that's the nature of an exponential curve. It happens slowly and then quickly. So we spent years understanding something called Moore's Law. And Moore's Law just basically said the number of transistors in the same density will double every 18 to 24 months. And that's what's brought you the gift of what we have here. Why we have Zoom, why we have computers, was the ability to put the number of transistors and keep increasing it every 18 months to 2 years. That required us to come up with inventions. Think about that. It goes from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 64, right? All of a sudden it gets very steep. We're now in the billions of transistors on a chip. What does that mean? It means the computing speed is now very, very fast, and we're starting to reach what some people call singularity, where the number of transactions per second equal to what's going on in the brain. If you look at Aurora, which is an Intel plus Cray and Argonne National Labs, it'll process 1 billion gigaflops per second, and that will be online in 2021. That means doing things that we've never even thought about being able to do before. It also means that we have artificial intelligence, we have voice recognition, we have all kinds of things that are going to become pervasive as we go forward. It's also made a difference in how we see things and do things. Here's the computer in 1965, here's the 50th anniversary of Moore's Law, and you can see the difference. TV has changed. The camera has changed. Obviously, the telephone has changed, or telecommunications. How old is this? 13 years. It's transformed the world, right, in a little over a decade. That is exponential. Music. How we interact with music, how we see music, how we deal with music has changed. This is an interesting one. Think about games. Games started out as a human interaction. We were in the same room together to play a game. We were on the same playing field to play a game. Now we can play a game with anybody on the planet anytime. Take a look at the automobile. You used to have a driver. It's questionable whether there'll be a driver in the future. And look at the adoption rates. Now, this is a classic exponential curve when it comes to the adoption of technology. This happens to be mobile and fixed line telephone subscription in the United Kingdom. So if you look at from the inflection point, roughly about 1995, to the peak, which is about 2005, in 10 years, you have over 100% saturation of a technology. That's an exponential era. So here's a whole bunch of names, companies that you may recognize. And there's an interesting question, right? What happened? What happened to these companies? Well, what happened is they're gone. And they are gone probably in most of your lifetimes. That's the result of an exponential era. So what do they all have in common? Right? They joined the ranks of the other flash-boiled frogs. Everybody's familiar with the story of the boiling frog. The temperature comes up, the frog gets sleepy, and then eventually boils. In today's world, it's a little warm. Oh, it's over. I'll give you a couple examples. So this is the newspaper advertising revenue profile from 1950 to 2012. And this looks at it as on an inflation basis, adjusted basis, so it's real dollars. And if you look at the number of dollars that they developed over that period of time, it was nearly $70 billion worth, right? A big business. There was a little thing called Craigslist that showed up in 1995. Now, can you imagine being in a boardroom in 1995 and Craigslist shows up and you're in the boardroom of classified advertising and the sales guys are going, it's just great, it's going forever. Right? But then about 5 years later, something happens. Craigslist starts to get traction. The other thing that happened is this starts to get pervasive. They coincide. They happen simultaneously. They converge. And what's interesting with that is once they did, that domain was gone to the classified newspaper industry. They tried to get back in it, that's the red line. They tried to get back in it, but the domain was gone. It was owned now by someone else, and therefore you can't bring it back. So that's another interesting thing about the exponential era, is if you miss the inflection point, you won't catch up. In the semiconductor industry, if you miss a node, if you weren't there to go from 8-inch wafers to 12-inch wafers, you didn't play. Your equipment doesn't work. Right, for the new fabs. It also happens someplace else. Now this is going to be a test question. You recognize these names. How long did it take Uber to extract 40% market share from the taxi business? 2 years? 2 years. Do I hear any higher? 14 months. Now you can imagine the dialogue in a boardroom. At the first quarter, who are these Uber guys? The second one is, we ought to probably look into these Uber guys, see what they're doing. Third quarter, do we have a plan to be in the Uber, are we looking at that? Fourth quarter, it's, have we contacted the bankruptcy courts? So I'm trying to make a point here is that in an exponential era, if you don't stay ahead of the curve, there's going to be a challenge to your business, and that means looking at technologies and all kinds of other things. And one of the reasons we named our company Intercepting Horizons. Traditional planning won't work in an exponential era because our agrarian history has really dictated our language. Oliver Wendell Holmes, and I'm going to paraphrase him, said, words are the skins of thoughts. The words you use help formulate your thoughts. They actually set the frameworks for your thoughts. So if you look at the agrarian language that we use in planning or to describe businesses, we use words like cash cows, harvest, seed, plant, cultivate, grow. Those are agrarian. It sets your mind and your outlook to an agrarian timetable and an agrarian perspective. We talk annual cycles, right, which is very seasonal. And traditional strategic planning methodologies won't work in that environment. Machines don't have circadian rhythms. They don't need sleep. They keep going. And so we have to change our language. We have to look at a new way of approaching strategy and strategic planning in order to stay ahead of the curve. Horizon lines is one of the things we look at, or points of departure in technology, society, the environment, science, governance. And they're changing at scale and at speed. That's basically volume at velocity, or the description of exponential. So all those things are moving quickly, and the question becomes, how do you keep up? And this is what the challenge is. If you are in the middle of an exponential transformation, so let's take an example of a simple one. An exponential transformation would be a digital transformation when we had ATMs come into the banking business. And overnight, you didn't need to go into the bank. Change the whole relationship between customers, right, and the bank. And it really created something called a digital divide, which is another thing that we're dealing with. And I would say to people, when we look at one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have going forward as a society is the digital divide, the gap, the access to technology. You can have all the great things you want in the world, but if you don't have access to them, it doesn't matter. And we see this in food distribution as well, right? The food's sitting over in a warehouse, the people are starving over here. It's how do you get from point A to point B is the real challenge. Same thing is going to be true in technology. Those that have access to technology and those who don't. So it's going to be very important going forward that they get access. So we look at what is your planning cycle. It does scroll, how about that? Could your strategic planning processes have identified what was important? And emboldened you to jump in time to survive? And that emboldened statement is very interesting as well. One of the things we've come across, I think, over the last several months is what we call the threshold of courage, the ability to make a decision or the desire to overcome the obstacles to do something that's difficult. So the question is what you are doing today, is it going to allow you to stay ahead of the curve? Are your planning processes going to do that for you? Because if they don't, right, these are the guys that are using new planning processes. They're looking at the exponential era. They're looking at the exponential curve. They're trying to figure out how to stay ahead of it, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. How old is Amazon? 30. It's 30 years old. Look at the bottom of the curve. Look at the starting point. You don't see it coming, and then it's there. So the challenge is it's counterintuitive. You think exponential era, go faster. All we got to do is go faster. It's too late. You have to see it on the horizon. You have to see what's coming. You have to look at the intersection of ideas and things. Otherwise, you're going to be doing this. So from looking at it as a group of business executives, when we got together, we said, you know, what do we have in common? And it's like, well, we've chased this exponential curve for years, like 30. And we said, what works? And we started to look around at different things that might possibly work. So some of this came from design theory, some came from complexity theory, some came from OODA. Now, OODA is something the Air Force uses to train their pilots when they're dogfighting. And that is observe, orient, decide, act. And we found that there was something common to all of these sort of processes. One of them was just the idea that on an awareness level, you know, how do you find out what's going on? We call it horizoning, looking out over the horizon. So this is kind of a little bit of what we developed to stay ahead of the curve. It's called SPX. Strategic Planning for an Exponential Era. And we looked at identifying and monitoring horizons. We generate insights, we formulate a rough plan, we implement, and then we decide, are we going to scale or are we going to kill it? So it's a very interesting way to look at it. And again, we put it together off of things that work over time and in that kind of an environment. When you start to break it down, we tried to look at things that are different, so I'll just take an example of one part of the curve here, or one part of the flywheel. It's interesting, we always talk about best practices, and best practices are a lot like looking in the rearview mirror. It is a best practice, by the time it gets to you, is it still a best practice? Or has it moved? Right? So you go, oh, best practice, and you run into something. You don't see around the curve. One of the differences that also has occurred over the last probably half century or so is the speed of communications. So think about human beings and how we communicate. We like to talk one-on-one. We like to have interaction. There's over 750 signals that are coming from me right now besides my voice to you about what I mean. Right? There's a lot going on, but we've reduced ourselves to 120 characters or other real shorthand forms of doing that. We don't give ourselves time to understand nuances. It used to be the messenger showed up, right? Went from one country to another country, or from one country, brought a message, they digested it, they sort of tried to understand it, went back. Then we moved and we got to horses and a little bit faster. Then we went to carrier pigeons. Then we went to the telegraph. And then we went to online, right? Wireless to online, one step. The nuances and the biases are tough to pick up. So one of the things to do is to look at your own nuances and biases as how you take in information as a company, as an organization, even as a person. You have built-in filters that look at those things, but we don't give ourselves enough time anymore to actually reflect on it. So you need a method that lets you go fast, lets you experiment quickly, and that's part of what we developed. Another part of this is the influence of time. And this is just to show you that there's actually substance behind just a little graphic. If you look at identifying horizons or inflection points, you need to understand some things that are going on simultaneously. This came about in 2007 because all of the technologies lined up. You couldn't have done it in 2006. You couldn't have done it in 2000, but you could do it in 2007. Why? Because all of the various tracks came together to create an inflection point. So one of the things you look at is, what are the technologies that are coming? What's the rate of change? What are the patterns in that technology? And when might they arrive? Because that's your inflection point. And if you're not there, it moves on, whether you do or not. So there's an inflection point, there's an adjustment once you see it, and then there's a turning point, at which point it gets a little fast to catch the train. It's a little bit hard, right? It's moving away, you can't run fast enough to catch it. And that's the point of no return. Let me give you a real life example. This is some work we did for a company looking at what happens to logistics when you combine 3D printing and autonomous vehicles. And you go, really? We're going to look at 3D printing and autonomous vehicles? Come on, we're barely using 3D printing. Really, you can order them online. Your kids can make stuff, and probably do. The issue is, who else is looking out there? How fast is it moving? So we work with a company that uses AI to look at the USPTO, to look at patents. We said, let's just take a look at who's doing something with 3D and autonomous vehicles. And you say, well, who might be that? Who might those guys be? Well, Walmart shows up. That's interesting. And they show up because they've developed systems and methods for delivering products via autonomous ground vehicles to vehicles designated by customers. All right, very interesting, point to point, autonomously. What about a method of manufacturing a product or at or en route to a point of delivery with a single dimensional or multi-dimensional printer? Somebody already has that one. Distribution and retrieval of inventory and materials using autonomous vehicles, Amazon. Automated access to secure facilities using automated vehicles. So think about a medical device company that is delivering things overnight, right, on a regular basis. The trucks are out there, they never stop, they never sleep. The 3D printers are constantly going. All you got to do is refill the materials, and the next morning, all the things that are needed for the hospital are right there. And oh, by the way, since it's vehicle to vehicle or point to point, and you've already given the security code, a little robot comes out of the back of the truck and fulfills the order. and it just keeps going. That has an impact on logistics. So ready or not, here they come, right? It's an exponential era. Stay ahead of the curve. We actually have a book coming out on it in November, so hopefully you can go online and pre-order it if you'd like. But we thought we'd share it with the world, our ideas and our insights, and I really want to thank you for having me. Question and answer, I think. One question?
Here we go.
Understand what you're saying. I've been in sales all of my life, and we've usually concentrated on one specific thing, and that is, in order to be successful in sales, I'm talking technical sales, you have to establish relationships. So are we going to eventually take all of that out of decision making, and it will no longer be emotions?
All right, so the question is, in sales, typically it's relationship based, and especially when you're dealing with technical stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I sold lithography tools to an Intel. You better have a relationship with the CEO because he's betting his farm on your tools, right? I think that's always going to be there to a certain extent. There's probably an underlying thing that is maybe driving the question even more, which is trust. And that's becoming one of the bigger issues in the trade-offs that we're looking at, is what's the trust element, right? In order for me to accept that you just showed me something that's true, I'm going to buy it based on that truth. That's a huge trust factor. And it's unfortunate we see, trust sort of unwinding in lots of areas when we actually need it more. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Giving us a lot to think about here. Don't wander too far here. Socially distanced. Gotta do that. Great presentation. Really appreciate it, and timely. Talk about change. Holy smokes. I feel like we're right at that curve going up the roller coaster. Share a little bit about Rotary. From literacy and peace to water and health, Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million problem solvers who unite to take action to create lasting change to better our world. And in honor of your presentation, our club will make a donation to the Sheridan Story, an organization focused on providing weekend and other food gap programs to over 10,000 children in the Twin City metropolitan area. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, looking ahead, here's the calendar. We've talked about many of these events coming up. And our speaker next week is Pam Hulstrand, all about adoption. And I want to thank all of you for being with us today, and thank you, Michael. That was a great talk. I want to leave you with a quote: "Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change." Wayne W. Dyer. With that, meeting adjourned.